Hi, Matt. So
Yeah.
yes, it works now. Hi, everyone. I see a couple people who joined in. So thanks for joining, Matt. So Matt joined me. He's a psychologist and now he turned CFP. So he has a very interesting story to share. So Matt, why don't you introduce yourself? A little bit about yourself. And we'll get deep dive into how you became from a psychologist to now a therapist, to a
Sure.
CFP. Go
Thanks
ahead.
for having me, Christine, by the
Mm-hmm.
way.
Yeah.
Very cool to be on one of your first guests, I think. You've been at this just a few months. My name is Matt Goren. I'm a professor of financial planning at the American College of Financial Services, which is the oldest and largest educator of certified financial planners, among other certificates in the financial planning space.
Mm-hmm.
So I now train the advisors themselves, or people who want to be advisors. And a lot of what I
Mm-hmm.
focus on is how to communicate with clients, how to demystify what we do, and have them actually change their behavior. And in my past, I was focused more on financial literacy. I was teaching undergraduates at the University of Georgia, something like 2,000 students a year. I did that for a couple of years, and that was the largest class of any kind at Georgia while I was teaching that. And while I was in that world, I was also doing a lot of pro bono work, trying to find how to bring financial literacy to your like lower income folks.
Mm-hmm.
So I've kind of been all over the place, as we'll discuss more. That's two career shifts even in the last couple of years already.
Yeah, wow. So you major in psychology first, and you went to finishing your PhD in psychology, right? So it's like after
Mm-hmm.
so many years, like what shifted? Like what were your focus there, and then like what shifted to now finance the CFP? Like when did the change of heart happen?
So 2013, amazingly, over 7 years ago already, is when the change of heart happened. I was a PhD student at UC Berkeley at the time.
Mhm.
And for like a little history lesson for seven
Mm.
and a half years ago, the job market was garbage back then. So it was really tough to get a job in psychology at that
Uh,
time. And also at that same time, psychology was going through what was called the replication project, where people
mhm,
were trying to replicate our studies
mhm,
and they were failing to do that. Our stuff was not replicating. Oopsie
mhm,
daisy. So it was kind of, I don't know, a lot of it was fake, I guess. And,
mhm,
um, and I was just getting burned out with the whole field.
mhm.
And
Yes.
I was heavily involved in student government at the time. And
Mhm,
someone asked me to give a talk on anything is like part of this rotating speaker
mhm,
series. And I said, well, how about I give a talk on what I do to survive in the San Francisco Bay Area on very
mhm.
low income as a graduate student in a very expensive part of the country. And they said, sure,
Wow.
go
Yeah.
for it. Tell us what you do. And I did. And that
Uh-huh.
was like the most fun I ever had giving a talk. And I got the advice from a business professor, like, go get your CFP, just give it a try. And I sort of enrolled in the program and I enjoyed it. And so
Mhm.
over a 3 year period, starting in late 2013, I just did more and more personal finance work. I did less and less psych work.
Oh.
Um, I really like personal finance. I really like our field. And
Mhm.
it's been a really great transition for me. And some other folks that I know who also made the transition, I think, like it a lot. So once I
Mhm.
really got my foot in and started doing more of the personal finance stuff, it's like everything I did was better than what I was doing before.
Mhm.
So it felt good and it pays better,
Yep.
which helped.
Yeah.
It
So
feels a
you
lot
you
better.
were from the Bay Area. Actually, I am moving out of the Bay Area. I'll be in Las Vegas in like a couple of days, in about a week. So you're so tell me more about, like, okay, so how much were you making back then, and then like how did you survive at that time?
So when I first moved to Berkeley in 2011, I was making 23 or 24,000,
Mhm.
something like that. And then
Mhm.
I just, I mean, that's tough, as you know, right? You're living
Yep.
there. That's like
Yes.
nearly impossible to live out there on that little. So I started doing anything that I could, like consulting work, teaching extra classes, any way that I could make
Yeah.
money. I was doing that. So by 2014, I think I got up to like 35.
Mhm.
which is still not a lot of money in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was struggling quite a bit, but then I was living with roommates. I was moving a lot to chase cheap housing because that's
Mm.
really the root of the problem out there is
Yeah.
housing costs.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and didn't I sold my car in 2012, didn't have a car, just living as cheap as I could. So I was making it work. I didn't take any student loan debt or
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Wow.
it was tough. And
Yeah,
I make a lot more
35,000.
than
That's like what after tax, 2000 something after tax, and then like the rent alone is like, I don't know back then how much it is, but now like I'm moving to Vegas, it's like one bedroom, one bath is $1,200. And someone LinkedIn messaged me, they're moving here to the Bay Area and
Mhm.
asked me about the cost. Like, yeah, they're coming from Texas to here. I think that's like you're gonna triple your expenses. So it's like they're telling
Yeah,
me it's like 3,000. I mean, one bedroom like the close here for luxury apartments like 2,600. That's more than double in Las Vegas. Plus the housing is just, it's
oh
just
yeah,
crazy here. I mean, like the weather here is awesome, but then financially, I think sometimes it might not be make the most sense too.
sure.
So
But you
yeah.
can't enjoy it. So, I mean, that was my experience. Is like
Hmm.
the first 6 months when I moved there in 2011, I did every weekend I was doing something. I was going
Hmm.
out and exploring all the
Hmm.
Muir Woods and Alcatraz and
Yeah.
all the stuff, right? I was doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then like 6 months later, I was like, okay, I've done the things.
Yeah.
Now I'm just gonna do normal stuff. You watch TV, you
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
home, you eat dinner, you go to bed, just
Yeah.
regular everyday kind of stuff. And I was like, I'm paying so much just to live, just to do anything. Just
Exactly.
like I could be watching TV and eating dinner anywhere in the world.
I know.
So what am I doing here?
Yep.
And so
Yep.
I couldn't afford to do the stuff. And I remembered
Yeah.
like Book of Mormon. You remember that? It was like a Broadway show. It was like the
No, I
South Park
haven't seen
Soup.
that. Hmm.
They did
Yeah.
this Broadway show called Book of Mormon, and so I
Hmm.
was like, "Oh, they're coming to town. I really want to see Book of Mormon."
Yeah.
And so I looked up the ticket prices, and it was like $280 a person. And I was like, "There's no universe where I'm going to pay that, and then if I'm dating someone, so double that, right?
Exactly.
550, whatever. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to do for a night out, $550 just to go to the show."
Yep. Yep.
And then the BART and an Uber and blah 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 blah. It's like going to be a
Yeah. Yeah.
$700 night.
Exactly.
And as you said, I'm making like 2,000 something take home.
Yeah.
So for one night, I'm going to blast through like a third of my
Ex-
entire monthly income.
Exactly.
So no, I never went. I never saw it. So I'm like, cool. I
Yeah.
live in this cool area. I live in one of the coolest places in the world, and I hate it because I'm never doing anything.
So where did you move out to?
2016, I moved to Athens, Georgia, which is
Okay.
literally like the opposite. It's almost as far away in every sense as you can be.
Yeah.
So uh, well, when I first moved to Athens, I lived right across the street from campus, which can be
Mhm.
expensive, but I Airbnb'd
Mhm.
during the football games. University of
Mhm.
Georgia, right? So the Bulldogs and the big
Mhm.
football
Yep.
team and all that. And so I was Airbnb in my house every football
Mhm.
game. So I
Yeah.
lived rent free in Athens because I just
Mm.
left my house when I
Yep.
did that. So the same sort of thing I was doing in San Francisco, but the difference was uh, my take home pay was higher because I was a professor at Georgia, and then also the
Mhm.
expense, every other expense was so low.
Yep.
So I went
Yep.
from living basically paycheck to paycheck in the Bay
Mhm.
Area
Mhm.
to maxing out my 403b, maxing out my IRA, maxing out my
Mhm. Yep.
HSA, all
Yep.
that.
Yep.
In and I did make a little more, I guess, because when I was not a grad student when I left San
Mhm.
Francisco, I
Mhm.
think I made 55 grand my last year in San Francisco. I made 55 grand my first year in Athens. But again, so
Mm.
same income, right? But then
Yep.
going from paycheck to paycheck to
Yep. Exactly. And
yeah,
most of it was from the housing cost, I assume, right? Yeah. It's
yeah,
just
house
it's
is
yeah.
the biggest,
It's
yeah,
yep. I mean, I could afford to live here in Silicon Valley, but I'm like with my business, I can run from anywhere in the world. Why
hmm
not just go to somewhere where there's no state income tax
right,
and housing costs is like more save at least half of it. So it just doesn't make sense. I've lived here 20 years. Like it's time to go somewhere else to
yeah.
explore. So
So
okay,
yeah,
so tell yeah, so tell me about, so it seems like you have passion for financial literacy, and then for, I guess, people who probably don't make as much. So tell me, like, what was your business model, and like how did you set it up so you can help lower income clients? And by lower income clients, like, what do you mean? Like, how much are they making? And then it also depends on the area.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and well, so I worked with college students. I worked undergrads, graduate students. I worked with
Mhm.
children. I worked. I've since moving. I worked with some senior
Mhm.
citizen folks. So it's really been
Uh-huh.
the whole,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
all sorts of people. And I've
Yep.
when I was in the Bay Area, um, it was like low income by anyone's definition,
Mhm.
right? So like I did a little bit of work with Job Corps. These are people who are late teens, like
Mhm.
16 to 20, I think is the oldest, and they're either unemployed or they're working minimum wage. So
Mm.
when I say
Yeah.
low income in that sense, I mean like nothing, like nearly
Mm.
zero. Some of the other organizations I was helping with, same idea. Like back then, I think the wealthiest person I worked with was maybe 50 grand a year income. And again, that's San Francisco dollars. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
not much.
Yeah.
So most of the work that I did out there was either, well, it was through nonprofits, was through some kind of nonprofit. So
Mhm.
UC Berkeley University nonprofit, did some work with
Mhm.
them. That's where the undergrads and grad students came in. YWCA, Operation Hope, like I said,
Mhm.
Job Corps. And then there were a few fintech companies and like new businesses that I was doing consulting with,
Mhm.
that I never was an employee for, never did any work for them, but I got a lot of exposure to different business
Mhm.
models.
Yep.
So really, the focus for me was not let me start up a business on my own and let me work with 1,000 clients a year, whatever you got to do. It was
Mhm.
let me bounce around from organization to organization. And I probably was like a dozen, 12 to 15 organizations, somewhere in that ballpark, that I in some capacity worked with in like a year and a half.
Mhm.
And so I got to see tons of models, tons of
Mhm.
different ways that you might solve this problem. How do you work with low income people?
Yep. Yep.
And that to me then came up with this idea of, um, like you've got your own, you've got your business. And
Mhm.
usually how we think about your business relating to a customer is like I've got my node, and then there's this, let me get in my camera, there we go. So I got like
Yeah.
my business, and then I've
Mhm.
got my customer, and the
Mhm.
money flows from my customer to me, right? The
Mhm.
customer, it's all reversed. I'm just like, no,
Mhm.
like mirror here. So my
Yep.
customer pays me, I can't remember which node was which. So my customer's paying me, the money flows in between the two of us.
Mhm.
But when we're working with a low income clientele,
Mhm.
there can be, and there often has to be, a third node in this business structure. So you've got your business,
Mhm.
you've got the client, the one
Mhm.
who you are serving, and then there's this
Mhm.
third group. So it's more like a triangle. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my webcam.
Yeah.
There's like a triangle where
Mhm.
the customer and
Mhm.
the client are
Mhm.
not the same entity. The
Mhm.
client who you're serving
Mhm.
may not, and often isn't, going to be paying you. The customer is going to be paying you.
Yep.
So think about the model like with Facebook is a good example of this. The client is the user,
Mhm.
you and me and whoever else is on
Mhm.
Facebook, where we
Yep.
have our Facebook profile. It's all free.
Yep.
We are not paying Facebook anything.
Mhm. Yep.
Who's the actual customer? The customer is some advertiser.
Mhm. Yep.
So the
Exactly.
client gets to use Facebook, the company, for free.
Mhm.
The customer is getting access to the clients,
Mhm.
and that's how the whole thing works. And it's one of the most lucrative businesses in the entire world. So if you
Mhm.
start thinking about how can we split up the client from the customer, it introduces different business models. In the
Mhm.
personal finance space, you can have someone writing a blog who's sponsored by
Mm.
some bank. So now I'm giving free general
Mhm.
financial knowledge to whoever, my audience,
Mhm.
being sponsored by a bank, by a brokerage, by whoever. If you're
Mhm.
doing a podcast, exact same thing. And
Yep.
I had a podcast for a few years that was sponsored by different financial advisors
Mhm.
generally.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
we'd say, you're listening, thank you. Meet our sponsors. Go
Mhm.
work with our sponsors.
Mhm.
So that's a very common way you can do it. In the nonprofit space, you might get a grant from the federal government or from a state
Mhm.
government or from a city. And it's very common in the
Mhm.
financial literacy world. When I was at
Mhm.
Georgia, we had a grant for one of our nonprofit free financial advising things that was $8 million from the federal
Mhm.
government.
Yep.
So we didn't charge anything. In fact, we paid people to come, which I thought was backfired badly. I don't think that was a smart thing to do, but that's what we did.
Uh.
So if you're thinking about what is my business, what do I want to do? Am I providing general knowledge?
Mhm.
Okay, then maybe getting some kind of referrals. If you send a customer, if you send a client, I should say, to a credit card company and the credit card company signs them up, you can
Mhm.
get paid $200 to $800 for that referral, depending on what it is.
Yep. Yep.
So if you believe that credit cards are appropriate or suitable, or
Mhm.
ideally you're a fiduciary, so you think it's in their best interest. If you think it's in the client's best interest to go get this certain credit card and you send them there after establishing that relationship, you might get paid $200 or $300 for that
Mhm.
relationship.
Yep.
That's probably more than that client was going to pay you in the first place.
Mhm.
So you're better off. The client's better off. The credit company's better off. Everyone wins in that scenario. Student loan refinancing is
Mm.
another one.
Yep.
SoFi, Credible, Common Bond, all these will pay you $100 to $200 in that range per person who signs up to get their loans refinanced. So if
Mhm.
you're working with people who just graduated from college and they have a lot of debt, they're not willing to pay you anything. Well, can you
Mhm.
get their loans refinanced? And then you're making, say, $150 per person.
Mhm.
Generally speaking, it's good to refinance your loans if you're high income enough and so on. So those
Mhm.
people
Mhm.
then can generate you a lot of income that otherwise you couldn't get. So is that your aim? Is that the appropriate clientele for you? Are you more in the nonprofit space and you want to get grants? What I did not see work, what I saw a lot of people try, but I never really saw work was I
Mhm.
want my clients to pay me directly. How low can you go?
Yeah.
Is
Exactly.
it $20 for financial advice, a sustainable business model for you?
Yeah. Nope.
No?
Unless you live in Asia, where it's like super cheap, you can live off $1,000 a month.
Sure. Sure. But here's the other thing that we noticed is
Yeah.
to go from $0, so it's free, to 20, you might lose 90% of your clients. You
Mhm.
might lose
Yep.
90% of the people who want to work with you to go from 0 to
Mhm.
20. You
Got
lose
it. Yep.
80% going 0 to 1, by the way.
Mhm. Yep.
So people will not want to come in. The funnel shrinks dramatically as you start charging people. And then again,
Mhm.
you do this math. How much financial advice can you provide for $20?
Yep.
So now
Exactly.
you're doing groups because that's the only way that you can make it work.
Mhm.
If you're working with
Yep.
groups of people, how good is your advice? If you're
Mhm.
working in groups, at what point does it stop being individualized?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. That's why I haven't done group coaching yet, because I feel like personal finance is very personal, right? So there's only so much that you
Mhm.
can give advice on, because like, and also it can get pretty sensitive. So I'm still exploring that option, but most of my clients is all one-on-one. There's no group coaching right now. So that's actually really interesting. So basically, this is kind of model, almost like an affiliate model. Like it's like you have an affiliate
Mhm.
with people, so of course, like you want to make sure that it's for the best interest of the client. If they do have to consolidate, they will have to consolidate anyway, but then it's through your referral, through your affiliate, then you get paid and they don't pay you anything. So is that how you've been running your business model since you started your own company? I assume you have your own company, right?
I gave that up.
Okay.
When I became a professor at Georgia, I was like, all
Oh,
right,
you get
I'm
so you
done.
went from a psychologist to CFP and now you a professor. Okay, so how
Yeah.
many years were you running your own company?
Um, so I was working for an RIA for
Mm-hmm.
10 months. I was exploring this different consulting stuff because again,
Mm-hmm.
I in terms of who paid me for financial advice, and rather than the RIA, who paid me, I don't know that
Mm-hmm.
anyone ever did. But
Mm-hmm.
so I did consulting where I was helping these different organizations. I did a lot
Mm, got it.
of pro bono work in that
Mm-hmm.
time trying to figure this out. And so I'd say like, hey, how much would you be willing to pay for this? Like I
Mhm.
worked for NerdWallet exclusively for 3 months, and we
Mhm.
had this whole
Mhm.
thing. How much would you pay NerdWallet for this, and what can that look
Mhm.
like? Why did we see
Yeah.
Operation Hope? Blah blah blah. There's a few of them that we tried out with, and
Mhm.
that consulting stuff lasted something like a year and a half.
Mhm.
Um, so uh, yeah, so I gave up on all that because the reality for me was I wanted to help all these people,
Yeah.
but it was pulling teeth to get that to work. Until then, I said, "Well, I'm just going to go be a professor, teach
Mhm.
2,000 students a year,
Mhm.
teach another, I don't know, whatever it was, 200 or so people in the Aspire clinic at
Mm.
UGA, also pro bono advising. I'm going to go work with all these thousands of people. I'm going to get a salary." And
Yeah.
the University of Georgia has a public service mission, so they want to do it
Mm.
because of that mission. We got this $8 million federal grant, so the money's coming in from the grant, and that
Okay.
allowed me to do what I wanted to do and then serve that many more people.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's one other business model I wanted to mention before we like get off of this, which I think can work really well. If you get away from very, very low income, which I think, to summarize before, it's nonprofit grant funded, or
Mhm.
as you said it, some kind of affiliate model. I just
Mm.
don't, in years, right? Years of reading about this and trying to do it and all this. It's
Yeah.
really one of those for the very low income people. I would suggest everybody stop trying to get people who have no money to pay you with their no money. Just don't bother. There's always something better for them to spend their money on than you. That's
Yeah.
the nature of it, right? If they're
Yeah.
struggling with eviction,
Yeah.
your fiduciary duty to them is fire me, free up the money you're saving from me.
Yeah.
That's the reality for very low income people, nonprofit or affiliate. The
Mhm.
other thing, though, is what about your middle income, working class people, middle class people? Uh,
Mhm.
there are a few companies with a business model that I really think is amazing. I highly recommend. I think it's going to
Mhm.
blow up, become very big. Smart Path is a company here in Atlanta that fits this very well. You go to an employer and you offer they pay you, the employer pays you, and then in exchange for that payment, you make yourself and your team available to the employees, usually for free, maybe for an extremely low like copay, so
Mhm.
to speak. And so companies like SmartPath go into all these corporations. The
Mhm.
corporations want to provide an employee benefit. We
Mhm.
know that the more financially secure you are as an employee, the more productive you are at your job because you're not
Mhm. Yep.
stressed all the time. You're not looking for new work. So,
Exactly.
from the employer's point of view, this is a good thing. This is a productivity enhancement.
Mhm.
And then the employees get free financial advising, and then your company gets
Mhm.
this nice contract.
Mhm.
And of course, most Americans are employed. Most Americans could also use financial advice. So it's a
Yes.
business, an employee benefit that they value. Um,
Exactly.
and so again, that little triangle idea that your business is better off, the individual is better off, and the company's better off. Everybody wins. Not
Mhm.
for super low income because your McDonald's is not going to do this,
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately, but your
Yeah.
middle income people do benefit from
Yeah.
it a lot. And that to me, in my experience, my opinion on this is that's the model that is going to solve this middle market problem.
Yeah.
I think that's where it's going to be. Um,
Exactly. Yeah. So, what do you think of wealth managers? Because I think like when I was trying to explore, getting into the personal finance field, so I was a little turned off by the financial advisory world because I live in Silicon Valley.
yeah.
Like everyone I talk to, they're just so focused on finding the wealthy people so they can manage their
Mm-hmm.
money. So when I was looking for one, I really just wanted to find some CFP or professional to help me understand money or just teach me. I didn't
Yeah.
want anyone to manage my money, but they were just all focused on either selling me insurance, whole
Yeah.
life insurance to be exact, because they get a commission, or like they want to manage my money. If you don't have $100,000, they're not even gonna want to bother to talk to you. And I'm like,
That's
how
what I
does
would
that
do.
solve any problem. So I was really turned off. So that's why like I decided to be a financial coach, because I feel like I
Mhm.
don't want to be like those. And then if you look at Yelp, like in the Bay Area, financial coach, I'm the highest rated in the entire Bay Area. Like there's no other. So what does that tell you? Is like nobody, there's no coach here who just want
Right.
to help people who are kind of like what we're trying to solve. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about this. And then I know not everyone's ready to pay for my one-on-one coaching, so I'm working on a financial literacy course as well, so at least it's affordable. And then like I do need to explore the route that you're telling me. I haven't gotten to that yet. It's mostly just pay directly. So it's just really interesting to learn about the third model. So the university you worked at, I'm also sad that that our country, right? There's no financial literacy that is mandated even in middle school. Like I think the earliest, I think we can probably start in middle school, right? But it's not by law. So it's like so I'm sad. Like the clients who come to me, like like okay, they are where they're at because first of all, their parents are also financially illiterate, so they
Mhm.
don't learn that at home. The parents are probably broke themselves. The parents don't teach the kids about anything about financial literacy. Then they go to school, they also don't learn that. So where are they gonna learn, right? So that's great. That I don't know how far, I mean, your university, like, I mean, what are their initiatives, or then who are they, who are they target, I mean, what schools are they teaching right now? I guess it's just probably just in your area for now.
Yeah, well, and University of Georgia is not going through the school
Mhm.
system, which I wish they had. There's a
Mhm.
Me and that program did not agree on some stuff
Mhm.
that I was constantly complaining we weren't reaching enough people. Uh,
Mhm.
we would try to go out and find people one on one. I think why I like the business, the go to the employer model that I said before,
Mhm.
why I totally agree with you, we should be doing this in schools, is
Mhm.
because you can go where people already are and you can reach way more people if you go where they already are rather
Mhm.
than making them come to you.
Mhm. Yep.
How hard, there's always something on Netflix, there's always some other distraction.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
why are people going to go on their Wednesday night or whatever to come hang out with you?
Yeah.
They're going to listen to you if you show up at their workplace and they get to take an hour break to come and talk to you.
Exactly.
They're going to,
Yep,
if you're in
yep.
the school system and you take over their math
Mhm.
class, and
Mhm.
instead of talking about addition and subtraction in some abstract
Yeah.
concept, 2 plus 2 equals 4, $2 plus $2 equals $4, right?
Mhm.
Teach these concepts in the regular class where the people already are. I think
Yeah.
that's a great idea. We used to teach personal finance in our schools until the early 1980s.
Mhm.
And then someone's bright idea was it's better to do a bunch of standardized testing than to teach people
Mhm.
practical life skills.
Mhm. Yep.
Oopsies. And since then, we've gotten rid of it across the board. So you're right, we don't teach it. Operation Hope is a nonprofit, national nonprofit that does reach out to some schools. What is it called? Funding the
Mhm.
Future.
Mhm.
I think that's what it's called. There's another one that goes
Yep.
into schools. It's like rock and roll based, something like that,
Yeah. Yep.
musically based.
Yeah.
But yeah, we
I
should be going into schools more.
Exactly. I do hope so. I think that's kind of like one of my passions. So hopefully later on, I can do something for that. Actually, Jennifer Bush from Facebook, she's actually my friend. She say there are early financial planners out there. Garrett Planning Network is one of the organization, not fat too. So Jennifer, yeah, I'm that was when was it? That was 5 years ago. That was before I became a financial coach. So I didn't know any better. I didn't know anything about how the CFP works, financial this network works. So had I known better, I would probably have hired early financial planner, because then the thing was that I short sell my home back in, I don't know, when was it, when the market crashed, like 2011, 12 or something. So I regret it. That was actually my worst financial decision. I wrote an
Mhm.
article about that, because then it's Silicon Valley. So it already recovered, but I short sell it. So it was, yeah, but then like I was trying to find help, but I couldn't find help, and then it was just, if I had knew of financial coaches or early financial planner at the time, I would have probably hired someone to actually talk me through this. This is a good financial decision. But then the only people I could talk to at the time was the realtor, which was representing the buyer and the seller. So of course there's gonna be a
That's
conflict
good.
of interest. And then
Yeah.
like I had a CFP at the time, but he was someone who was trying to sell me whole life insurance, and I don't have kids, and like I didn't see like what's the point in
Yeah.
the whole life insurance. It was just ridiculous. I had to ask him like, can you give me the breakdown of like, the financial breakdown, how much I'm gonna get and all that stuff, because I love Excel. I do analysis very well in Excel. That's all I do all my modeling on. I was like, I did the analysis. I'm like, I'm losing money from this. I might as well just like buy, if I do need life insurance, term life, and invest the rest, and I can get a lot more from that if I do need life insurance. But then like life insurance is there for a purpose to insure a life, right? If someone's financially dependent on you, but who's dependent on me? I mean, I have
Yeah.
dogs. I might as well just have a trust, but not an insurance for the
No, I mean,
dogs.
I would say, like, not only is that CFP not up to the fiduciary standard, I would say that's not a suitable recommendation,
Exactly,
right? If you
exactly.
don't
And
have any dependents, right,
yeah,
what are they
yeah,
doing?
yep, yep,
So,
yeah,
yeah, a lot of CFPs are great, some of them not so much. And
yeah,
I
yeah.
think, to Jennifer's point, I think hourly planners are great. Garrett is
Mm-hmm.
great. NAPFA's great. I'll throw XYPN in
Mm-hmm.
there as well as a source for a
Yeah.
lot of
Mm-hmm.
hourly planners,
Yep.
right? Um, it's
Mm-hmm.
that, who are your clients you're trying to serve, and what are they willing to
Mm-hmm.
pay? And
Yep.
where,
Exactly.
like, how much do you have to charge per hour for this to make sense for you and for it to make sense for
Ex-
them? Knowing that some
exactly.
CFPs
Exactly.
will charge, I think the average hourly rate for CFPs is something like 250, 200,
Mm-hmm.
250, somewhere in that ballpark. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a fair rate, because how much would you pay a lawyer? And I think that,
Yeah.
right,
Exactly.
lawyer CFPs, same basic thing, right? How much is it worth per hour?
Yep.
But how many low income people can afford that?
Yeah.
None.
Yep.
None.
Exactly.
Zero of them can afford that. How many middle income people is that? And when I say middle, like, keeping in mind the average American makes what? It's like 52,000 a year,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. How
Yeah.
many 52,000 a year Americans
Mm-hmm.
can afford that?
Yeah. Yep.
Some, but
Exactly.
not nearly all of them. When
Yeah.
we start getting into higher income, certainly your six
Mm-hmm.
figures can afford that. But
Yep.
we're really now talking about a very small percentage of the American public, really. And,
Yeah.
and, and Christine, you made this point before, these wealth managers, who are they serving? They're serving an
Yeah.
extremely
Exactly.
small fraction of the American
Yeah.
population. If you look at who is served by financial advisors, it's like single digit percent. It really
Yep.
is. It's single digit percent
Yeah.
Americans.
Yeah.
So the model works very well for people who have a lot. And you said, come to me with 100,000, I'll talk to you. That's really low. That is really low AUM.
Mm-hmm.
Very commonly, financial advisors won't talk to you
Mm-hmm.
unless you have $1 million
Mm-hmm.
of investable assets. That's a very
Yep.
common number.
Yep.
500,000 is another common breakpoint.
Yep. So
The
that
average
100.
net worth is like $80,000, something like that, is like the average American's total net
Wow.
worth.
Yeah.
So
That's
forget it.
crazy. Yeah.
They're not going to get that
Yep.
help. So that's where the other models come. Jennifer's point, great point.
Mm-hmm.
Work with an hourly planner, especially if you have just a question. Should I short
Exactly.
sell?
Yep,
You know,
exactly. Yep, yep.
and
That would
then,
have benefited me to have like talked to someone for an hour. I probably wouldn't have sold it. So, so and it
right,
just to
your
like
$250 might have saved you $25,000.
exactly, and then like what, and then I could rent it out in Bay Area rent, and that would have paid more, even though it crashed. That would pay more than my mortgage
Mhm.
already. So it's
Oh
just a
yeah.
temporary. So anyway, it's
Yeah.
just like it. Actually, I interview. I don't know if you know Dr. Brad Klontz is a financial
Mhm.
psychologist. So he was on my live stream too. So he was telling me that really people who are very successful, who are rich, they usually have make three big financial mistakes. So he was trying to make me feel better. You have two more to go through. I said no.
Great.
I think one. I
I
think
feel
one is
great.
one is enough. I think I
I'm
only.
going to screw up royally two more times. Thanks, Brad. I don't know where he's pulling that number from. That sounds like a good clickbait article.
All right.
Um,
Well, I'm gonna trust that he got that from some sort of research.
yeah, who knows? Who knows
Okay.
where he got that
So,
from?
so Matt. Okay. So let's talk about a peek inside personal finance academia. So it's like, why don't you talk
Mhm.
more about that?
So, like I said, I was professor at Georgia for 2 years. That was
Mm-hmm.
undergrad focused. That's kind of its
Mm-hmm.
own beast. And then
Mm-hmm.
now I'm at the American College, which is the like
Yep.
the trainee advisor, right? So very different animals. Very few universities have personal finance programs like
Mm-hmm.
Georgia has. I think there's some debate who's the best in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas State, maybe they're the best. Texas Tech, maybe they're the best. I think Virginia Tech is also up there. Georgia is up there.
Mm-hmm.
None of those universities are on lists of best colleges in the world. Usually you're talking about your Harvards, your Stanfords, your Berkeleys, or whatever. None of those places have personal finance programs. Harvard doesn't, Berkeley doesn't. They don't have these kinds of programs. So if you want to get an undergrad financial advisor education, you go to one of these. They're not very common yet, and they're focusing in the client relations side more than, say, a business school would. A business school might teach you about investment management, but it's not going to say how do you actually change someone's behavior. So if you're at the undergrad level, someone at the undergrad level who's interested in this stuff and wants to be a financial advisor, there are undergrad programs, but they're rare. And if your university has one, great, check it out.
Mm-hmm.
They're usually pretty good. I think a lot of them are very good. The difficulty for those people, for those undergrads, is that they pop out and what do? Think about yourself right now. If you're listening to this, or me, I can think about this, Christine, think about this. Would you hire a 22-year-old financial advisor?
Probably not, unless you're a millennial or something like that. Then maybe, because they might connect more with the person. Maybe, I don't
No 22-year-old's a millennial, Christine. You've aged out of that. They're Gen Z
know.
now. That's
Oh no.
Gen Z. Zoomers. No, millennials have gray
Yeah.
hair. You see, millennials have gray hair now. So it's very hard for a 22-year-old to get a start in financial advising. So they come
Unless,
out and they become paraplanners.
yeah.
They do analysis work.
Mm-hmm.
They fetch coffee. That's the reality. Hey, that sucks. That's the reality of it.
Yep, and
Because
then they don't make much either, and then they have to, like, I mean, they pretty much have to, like, they don't do much either. And then I never went that route, because, like, when I was trying to interview and look at the different professions, so it was either I work for Edward Jones, which is door knocking, that didn't really interest me, or life insurance, which you have to sell but you only make from commission. I'm like, how am I gonna live? Like, I need 6 months worth of saving to even pick anything up? And the fact that I'm selling, but you're only getting very small percentage. It's not even 50%. Like, most of it is going to the insurance company. I'm like,
yeah,
that's not
no,
gonna work for me. I want to have everything. I'm working hard for it, and then, like,
yeah,
I don't get everything. I mean, like, it was ridiculous. So, and then also when I was interviewing, I was like, paraplanner, they don't make much either. I was like, really? And then you don't really get to do anything with the client. So those, yeah, none of those business model really work for me. So what worked was actually to be just start my own business, a financial coach. I get everything, all the money goes to me 100%. I don't need to have a boss. And then, like, I was pretty good just learning everything, figuring out on my own. So that's why I really love this business
yeah.
model. And
And
yeah.
how old were you when that started? You were already in your 30s, right? Early 30s?
Yes, I'm not that young. So I started 4 years ago. So that was I was already in my 30s 4 years ago.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that, and I would say it's, if you're already in your 30s and you're doing a career change into it, which is what you did, and that's what I did, the road's a little bit easier. So that's the downside of those undergrad programs. It's like, just by the nature of you're still young,
Mm-hmm.
are there good jobs waiting for you? Now, here's the flip side of that. I will say, if you are one of those undergrads and you are willing to stick with it for about 8-10 years,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in that range, now you are in your early 30s, or you're 30, 32 years old. So right when a lot of other people are deciding to switch into personal finance, that's when I switched in. It sounds like you were around that age, Christine, when you switched in. That's when a lot of people decide, this is going to be my second career. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you, the person who got the undergrad degree, you've been at it for 8, 9, 10 years. So now
Mm-hmm.
when someone's deciding, who do I want to work with and hire my advisor, I got this 32-year-old who's just starting out,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got this 32-year-old who's got 10 years of experience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now the calculus changes again. You want to go with the 32-year-old who's got 10 years experience.
Yeah.
So lifetime, you're probably better off if you want to be a financial advisor. But at 22, at 23, it's tough. It is tough.
Mm-hmm.
The RIA world, registered investment advisor world, is a little nicer. It's a little bit nicer because usually when you're junior, the senior planners will let you sit in on the meetings more so than some other
Yeah.
businesses.
Yep.
But still, it's not awesome. It's not high level sort of stuff. But if you
Yeah.
are willing to stick with it, I think it's one of the best jobs in the world.
Mm-hmm.
If you are willing to stick with it, get rich
Yep.
slow,
Yep.
be kind of miserable for a little bit, but that can be a good thing. And again, I think the undergrad programs, I have nothing bad to say about the Georgia program or Kansas State. I think that's where Brad Klontz, you mentioned him. I think he's out of Kansas State. A lot of awesome people out of Texas Tech. I don't have anything bad to say about these programs. I think the quality of the education is really there. And because there's so few of these programs, the talent of the educators isn't spread. It's diluted across the country. Like these programs are able to bring on the best thinkers in personal finance in the world because there's not that many of them. So if that's your passion, you know it, this is what you want to do, explore those undergrad programs. For people who are more like you and me, who didn't
Yeah.
have it, I didn't know personal finance was a thing until I was like 27. I didn't even heard
Oh,
of it till I was like 27.
do do you know my friend Liz?
Oh,
She said Matt
Liz,
was
hi,
my
Liz.
GSI at Cal. So
I don't
what's
happen to
GSI?
remember a Liz Valencia, but I taught a lot of folks. Hi, Liz. Good to see you again.
What's GSI?
Grad student instructor.
Oh, yeah, she's my friend, and like her husband is Quetzal Q. You might know her husband, okay, or maybe not. But that's so wow, what a small world. I'm gonna
Yeah,
message her
there you
about
go.
that. She
Yeah.
moved to Phoenix. So she was from the Bay Area. She moved to Phoenix too, and then bought a house, and now she has an investment property. So it's like it's just financially
Oh,
make more
yes.
sense sometimes to get out.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, good. Good that
this
you
thing,
got out of
he
Cal.
doesn't remember. All right,
No,
you're
I
in trouble now,
thought,
Matt, for not remembering Liz.
I'm sorry. I did the math at one point. I think I've taught something. I'm like 5,000 or 6,000 people I've taught.
Uh-huh. Wow,
Uh,
what a small world. Okay, I'm gonna
so
message. Okay.
a lot of folks. What the heck was I talking about? Oh, so career changer people.
Yeah.
Where do
Okay.
you go? Right. So
Yes.
that's more of your American college, which is where I'm at now. And we are online with COVID. We're totally online right now.
Mhm.
When we're in person, it's usually through a company. So
Mhm.
some company will hire us, like State Farm. I have taught a lot of State Farm folks, Northwestern Mutual, Ray
Mhm.
J. There's a lot of companies that we'll go and work with.
Mhm.
Otherwise, for individual students, it's online, so you can do it from wherever.
Mhm.
I went to UC Berkeley's CFP program, and that was all in person.
Yep.
So a lot of these like adult education extensions of places
Mhm.
like Berkeley will be available. If you want to do career changing, you want to go get your CFP, check out like your local college. What is my local college doing? Do they
Mhm.
or university? Do they have anything? And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And then there's others. The College for Financial Planning is American's biggest competitor. I think they're great people. I'm not going to talk trash about anybody. So they're another online one, CFFP, College for Financial
Mhm.
Planning.
Mhm.
Compare us to them,
Mhm.
and then do the adult ed thing. And at
Mhm.
these institutions, the focus is very different. It's not a 4-year thing. You don't show up and commit to 4 years like you would in an undergrad. I finished Berkeley's program in a year and a half,
Mhm.
and I did one class at a time. And I just did one class, finished it, next class, one class, finished it, next
Mhm.
class. It took
Mhm.
me a year and a half. There's, maybe a few weeks in between
Mhm.
some of them. At American, same general thing. I think for a typical student is probably a year and a half. I'd
Mhm.
say CFFP is probably the same
Mhm.
thing because people have their full-time jobs
Yes.
and
Yep.
they have other things going on. They're doing this at night usually. So
Mhm.
our
Yep.
live webinars, American, and I'd assume CFFP is the same or similar, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Mhm.
So they're happening at night. And we have other what we call intensive review programs, which is 2 days. You do an entire class.
Yep.
Do not come into those cold, by the way. Do your homework before that 2-day
Yeah.
intense thing. Friday, Saturday, done. You're done
Mhm.
with the entire class. Again, it's thinking what's someone's actual work schedule because this is adults. And the youngest person in the room is usually in their mid-20s. The youngest is mid-20s. And I've had
Mhm.
students who are in their 70s. They just are like, I just want to see retirement, see what this is like. So
Yeah.
much bigger age range, people who are really taking it very seriously because they want to take their career to the next level. State Farm, a lot of times they'll say, we want you to get your, in their case, it's a certified financial consultant,
Mhm.
CHFC. We want you to be able to take your practice to the next level. So we don't expect you to get the certificate and leave. We want you to get the certificate and now you're better at your job. So for a
Mhm.
lot of people, it's to like get a promotion, get a raise. For some people, it is more like what you and I did, what you, Christine, what you and
Mhm.
me did, where it's like, I want to shift. I want to do something different. So I'm currently doing this one thing. I want to do the other.
Mhm.
Either way, I find these students take this very seriously. It's great. I love working with like, your
Exactly.
40-year-old
Exactly.
because they don't screw around.
Yep.
And then the career outcomes for those people are very different than the undergrad because you already have your gray hair. It's kind of a prereq to having clients. You already have the gray hair. So you pop out and immediately you're
Mhm.
able to pop into a good job. It's much more
Yep.
easy to do that. So
Mhm.
that's how I started at like 30 years old. That's how I went to the RIA and I was already client facing like day one.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then there's other folks who they go from selling insurance to now they're the financial planner and maybe they have the
Mhm.
background doing that, but it's day one, as soon as they get that CFP, CHFC, whatever. So to be able to switch careers into this world can happen really rapidly.
Mhm.
And you can go become an employee and be mid-level almost immediately. You can do what you did, Christine, and start up your own financial coaching business like immediately. And that's not something that the undergrads can do. Now,
Mhm.
there's a difference in how the professors work. So at your Georgias, Kansas States, Texas Techs, and so on, everyone you're going to be working with, every single teacher is a researcher first. They're well known in the research side of the field. You can go to Journal of Financial Planning and their names pop up all over the place.
Mhm.
Go TED Talks and all that stuff. You'll see these people. They're like thought leaders in the field. American has some of these people. Wade Pfau, one of the most famous thinkers in personal finance right now. He's a professor at American. Michael Finca is right up there in that same category. If anyone knows who they are, there's clowns like me, but for the most part, we have some of those folks. But a lot of the instructors at these American, CFFP, the Berkeley program, San Diego State has a program. There's whatever colleges have these programs. It's not usually your well-published thought leader person.
Mhm.
Usually it is a practitioner. It is someone who's in the financial planning world. And either they like to teach and they just want to be in front of people to teach because it's fun. I like to teach. A lot of people like to teach. So here's an excuse to go teach one class in like a low stakes environment.
Mhm.
Or it's people who are trying to get their business going. And this is a way to get some extra guaranteed income.
Mhm. Yep.
So the adult ed space around this, way more practitioners. And for people who want to be practitioners, they might prefer that. They might prefer to be taught by someone who's doing it themselves and
Mhm.
is learning directly from this person who can say this content, yeah, theoretically that makes a lot of sense, but you'll never do this. You'll never do this thing. What you'll really do is this. There's value
Mhm.
to their experience. Even though they're not getting published in the Journal of Financial Planning, they're never going to win the Nobel Prize in economics like Fama or Thal or whoever. They might have knowledge that's more valuable to you as
Mhm.
you're getting your business up off the ground. And they can tell you this is what worked for my business when I was getting started. This might be what works for you well. So now that we've talked about these two things, the undergrad version and then the adult ed version, some very common advice I've heard, and I kind of like this idea as well, is when you're an undergrad, unless you really know, and who knows, very few people know what they want when they're 20, but unless
Yeah.
you really, really know for sure 100%, go work somewhere else.
Mhm.
Go get your education somewhere else and do some other thing. You have an interest in biology, you want to go be a biologist, go do biology stuff. Go be a psychologist like I did. Go be a real estate agent. Go do a whatever. And have your career in that for
Mhm.
5 years, 10 years. Know that world, know those people, know what they need as potential future clients. And then when you are ready to make that switch, you still are interested in financial advising,
Mhm.
go get your adult education, go become a financial advisor that way. And now you have an immediate natural client base.
Mhm.
If you spent 10 years working as a high school teacher, guess who your clients are going to be? It's
Teachers.
all the teachers,
Yep.
probably starting off with your former colleagues. If you worked as a biologist, as some researcher, you study
Yeah.
COVID-19, guess what? Your clients are going to be these virologists.
Yep.
So you have your 10-year career in this other thing where you're maybe making
Mhm.
more money. You maybe find it more gratifying than being a
Mhm.
paraplanner and fetching coffee. And then you go get your CFP, for example, or your whatever, or
Yeah.
some other certificate. And
Yeah.
then it's kind of, to me, it's almost like that's the best of both worlds. You have a bit of a
Yep.
life. Like I
Mhm.
can speak to the psychology stuff. I
Mhm.
can speak to organizational diversity, which is what
Mhm.
I
Yep.
was doing before. And Liz, I maybe taught cultural psychology to. I don't remember what class Liz was in, that or statistics. I can speak to these other things and I can bring that
Mhm.
with me when I'm an
Mhm.
advisor. And if I
Yep.
was going to be a financial advisor again, if I was, that was my niche, I probably would be working with people who are the social scientists, maybe
Mhm.
professors, people who are still living the life that I used to live. I now have
Mhm.
special knowledge that other financial advisors simply don't have. Versus
Yep.
if you just start off as a financial advisor, you don't differentiate yourself because who do you
Exactly.
serve?
Yep. Yep.
Everyone, which means you serve no one.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's kind of where I was in the previous career, for almost 20 years before I became a financial coach. And then that kind of like gave me at least like like if you start right away as a financial advisor or whatever, then you don't really have but I built my career and then the financial security from those 20 years being in corporate. So that
Mhm.
kind of helped me. So now doing the financial coaching, I feel like I'm kind of semi-retired. I'm not as desperate.
Right.
Okay, I gotta make so much money so at least I can serve the people I want to serve. So this is awesome. So okay, so
Yep.
yeah, so hey, it's almost at the hour, Matt. I don't want to I'm trying to make sure that we don't go over the hour. So yeah, how can people find you, Matt? I know I'm which social media do you normally hang out at?
None.
Oh, you
I don't hang out on any
what?
social media, but people can
Okay.
find me LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn. You can feel free to add
Yeah.
me. You
Mhm.
can search Matt Goren,
Mhm.
Goren, my last name, and the American College. That's where I'm a professor now. If you're
Mhm.
interested in becoming a student at the American College, shoot me an email. I'm happy to
Mhm.
chat, or shoot me a LinkedIn or
Mhm.
whatever. Chat what that would be like, or what else might, if not
Mhm.
us, then who else might be a better fit for you?
Yeah.
Happy to do that. Email is usually a pretty good way to get to me. I'm on
Mhm.
Facebook too. You can see me post once every month about a news article.
Okay.
Literally don't do
Yeah.
anything on these sites.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and then I also have a radio show that's currently on hiatus. I guess I'll plug
Mhm.
that, even though we're not making any episodes.
Mhm.
Nothing funny about money.
Oh,
Nothing funny
like
about
that.
money.org. Check that
Cool.
out.
Cool. Mhm.
In another life before as a psychologist, I was like a comedian of
Mhm.
sorts.
Yeah.
So we have lots of stupid skits in that, all finance related skits. So
Yeah, if you're looking for a guest, let me know if that's out of hiatus. I'd love to be your guest as well.
yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah, I will tag you so people can find you on LinkedIn and then they can add you. And then yeah, no, it was really good to have you here. And then I'm actually taking CFP classes, the UCSC extension. So you went to UC Berkeley, but I'm in the South Bay, so I'm going to UC Santa Cruz extension, which is in Santa Clara. So because I'm moving to Vegas, they say they're doing online now. I actually have two more classes, but I took my time. I was taking a lot of breaks in between, so it was taking longer. Not like you went straight, but I was kind of. So I have two more to go, and then like I don't know. Hopefully, they don't change to not offering online. But if they do change to not offering online, like, am I able to just transfer the classes to American College?
Yeah. So
That's no issue.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess maybe we say the way you get your CFP is you need some kind of education requirement. You got
Yep.
yours through UC
Mhm.
Santa Cruz. I got mine through Berkeley. Other
Mhm.
people get it through American. You need the ed requirement, but there's all
Yep.
sorts of ways that you can waive out of doing that. You can, if you have a bachelor's degree in finance, for example, they just say, you're good. You have the education requirement. And then you
Mhm.
still have to do the other things like the experience requirement and so on.
Yep.
But like
Yep.
ed requirement is done. And we at American, I'm sure all these universities do this. If like Christine, if you popped in with 5 of the 7 courses, we would just say, okay, these 5, they're close enough.
Mhm.
So she gets to waive out of those, but we're
Mhm.
still going to make you take the last 2. And we'll
Mhm.
do this even mix and match where someone will come to us and say,
Mhm.
I'm an accountant. I
Mhm.
took, or I'm an international business major or something like that. Here's these
Mhm.
3 courses. Do these 3 courses look like this one CFP
Mhm.
course? And we're like, all right, sure, fine. You can waive that
Yeah.
particular. So we work with people all the time to waive that
Yeah.
stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, if you want online ed, the wave of the future,
Yep.
stay
Yep.
in your
So
house,
do
wear your mask, and take
yeah.
online.
So do you teach or you teach the teachers?
No,
You
both. So I'm an
Oh, okay. Cool.
instructor. I teach the
Mhm.
survey
Okay.
beginner course, intro
Yep.
to financial planning,
Mhm.
whatever we call
Mhm.
it. I
Yep.
teach investments. I teach
Mhm.
the capstone class where everyone does a case study and pretends
Yep.
to work with real
Exactly.
clients. So I'm
Okay.
kind of the beginning, the end, and somewhere in the middle, so that you
Ah.
can't avoid me. You'll work
Okay.
with
Cool.
me somehow.
Cool. Cool. Okay. So if I do decide to transfer there, I know who to reach out to. So it's really good to have you here, Matt. I really appreciate that. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And then I'll be converting this to a podcast so people can listen in if they can't watch the video. So thank you, and have a good day, everyone. Have a good weekend. Bye
Very, very
bye.
well. Thanks, Christine. See y'all.